ಅಂತಾರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯ ಯೋಗ ದಿನೋತ್ಸವः परिपालितः। योगः अन्तर्राष्ट्रीयस्तरे इदानीं प्रसारितः। भारतस्य योगदानं भवति एतत्। एवं संस्कृतमपि विश्वभाषा भवति। तदधिकृत्य अधुना विचारविमर्शः प्रवर्तते अस्मिन् सत्रे। तत्र अध्यक्षाः भवन्ति HR नागेन्द्रमहाभागाः। तानहं सम्प्रार्थये वेदिकाम् अलङ्कर्तुम्। एवं HS वादिराजमहाभागाः, के गणपतिभट्टमहाभागाः एवं मोहन राघवन् महाभागाः, एते त्रयः अपि पत्रप्रस्तोतारः भवन्ति। तानपि अहं सम्प्रार्थये वेदिकाम् अलङ्कर्तुम्। करताडनेन वयं सर्वेपि स्वागतं व्याहरामः। देशविदेशेषु सुप्रसिद्धाः इदानीम् अस्माकं पुरतः वेदिकायाम् उपस्थिताः सन्ति। तेषां सर्वेषामपि स्वागतं व्याहर्तुम् अहं संस्कृत अकाडेमी साहित्य अकाडेमी नवदेहली एतस्याः संस्थायाः कार्यदर्शिनः भवन्ति श्रीनिवासराव महाभागाः। डॉक्टर श्रीनिवासराव महाभागान् अहं सम्प्रार्थये स्वागतं व्याहर्तुम्। आदौ HR नागेन्द्रमहाभागाः, HS वादिराज महाभागाः, आचार्याः के गणपतिभट्ट महाभागाः, आचार्याः मोहन राघवन् महाभागाः, अधुना अध्यक्षाणाम् अनुमत्या कार्यक्रमं वयम् अग्रे सारयामः। यथा मया उक्तं, षष्ठे अस्मिन् सत्रे संस्कृतं योगश्च इति विषयमधिकृत्य त्रयः पत्रप्रस्तोतारः अत्र विराजन्ते। आदौ भवन्ति आचार्याः HS वादिराजमहाभागाः। योगस्य अध्ययने साधने च संस्कृतस्य भूमिका इति विषयम् अधिकृत्य ते स्वीयं पत्रं प्रस्तुवन्ति। तानहं सम्प्रार्थये कृपया आगत्य स्वकीयं पत्रं प्रस्तुवन्तु। किञ्चिदिव एतेषां परिचयं दातुमहम् इच्छामि। एते आचार्याः अधुना संस्कृतस्य भूमिकाम् उद्दिश्य योग अध्ययने साधने च संस्कृतस्य भूमिकाम् अभिलक्ष्य इदानीं स्वीयं पत्रं ते प्रस्तुवन्ति। एतेषां विषये किञ्चिदिव अहम् अत्र प्रस्तोतुमिच्छामि। एते योगविषये स्वीय PhD उपाधिं ते प्राप्तवन्तः। योगा फ्रॉम स्वामी विवेकानंद योग अनुसंधान संस्थान SV व्यास यूनिवर्सिटी मध्ये एते स्वीय पदवीं प्राप्तवन्तः। एवं अधुना एते योगा तथा प्रकृतिचिकित्सा, योगः तथा प्रकृतिचिकित्सा, तत्र संस्था भवति सेंट्रल काउंसिल फॉर रिसर्च इन योगा नेचुरोपैथी इत्यस्यां संस्थायाम् एते डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ हेल्थ एंड फैमिली वेलफेयर गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया न्यू दिल्ली इत्यत्र कार्ये निरताः सन्ति। अनेक प्रशस्तिभिः एते पुरस्कृताः सन्ति। तेषाम् अनुभवः महान् अस्ति योग विषये एवं प्रकृतिचिकित्सा विषये। अतः अस्मिन् विषये वक्तुम् एते अधिकृताः भवन्ति। तेषां विषय प्रस्तावेन वयं सर्वेपि उपकृताः भवेम इति उक्त्वा तानहं सम्प्रार्थये पुनः स्वीयं पत्रं प्रस्तोतुम्।
Good afternoon to one and all. Thanks for inviting me to share my thoughts on the topic, role of Sanskrit in the theory and practice of yoga. So, respected chairman of this session and the dignitaries on the dais and the stalwarts present here. So though I am not a scholar of Sanskrit, but I am into a yoga therapy and a yoga research. So not into the yoga philosophy also. But there is a unique thing in Vyasa University when we were doing PhD, and that's the custom even today. Whenever we take up a scientific subject for our research, at the same time we are also supposed to do a literary research related to the scientific research. For example, my study was on breast cancer patients who are undergoing radiation therapy by using a special technique called mind sound resonance technique, a meditation practice where there is a chanting of Mahamrutyunjaya mantra to get the patients out of the fear of death. So I was also supposed to do one literary research related to my scientific topic. So that where came the question what to take, and then the mantra, as the mantra chanting was one of the tools used in the intervention. So I was asked to take up the compilation of mantra according to the traditional text. That's where we went into a trouble, because we are not trained in the Sanskrit, we are not well versed with the Sanskrit, but now we have to go and search the term mantra where and all it is mentioned in the ancient classical text. So that's where we understood that yes, the Sanskrit knowledge is very, very essential. So with that, I would like to start my topic. I'll just give briefly why and how this Sanskrit knowledge is essential in learning of yoga practice. We all know that yoga is very ancient Indian practice. It's both a philosophy as well as a culture, and now it has moved to the science also. Why this Sanskrit is very, very important here, I just wanted to say is, now yoga has become worldwide. It's not only restricted to India or Indian origin. Now it has spread across the globe. And when it goes to the Western, they consider only some component of yoga as yoga. So means they are giving only mainly concentration on the practice of asanas, the physical postures, and the breathing practices or the pranayama practices, and meditation itself as a yoga, negating the entire philosophical principles behind the entire yoga system. So that's where now if he doesn't pitch in and if he doesn't give a proper Sanskrit meaning of this yoga and these yogic philosophical thoughts, the yoga will be restricted to a physical component as explained by Westerners, and once it comes from the West, we have to follow the same thing. So that's why the yoga is the Sanskrit knowledge is very, very important. So as you know that the knowledge of yoga goes thousands of years ago with our sages and the rishis. And what they used to do is, they used to observe the changes happening inside the body and the mind by experiencing by themselves, by doing these yoga sadhanas. And they documented their experiences both through writing and by passing them from generation to the generation. And they documented all their experiences in Sanskrit language. So that's the problem. And we know their experiences even today. And those experiences we are trying to evaluate through a scientific, rigorous research methodologies, and we are proving that yes, yoga is not just a philosophical practice, but it also has a medical benefits. So if you look at the brief history of yoga up to the 21st century, though we say that the Indian literatures or the ancient Indian wisdom has a history of more than 10,000 years back, but the evidence-based thing is the 2500, the Indus Valley evacuation. And from there onwards, in the Vedas, we get a reference of a yoga. And then the Maharshi Patanjali is the one who called these Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and he codified these yoga practices into a sutras and brought it into a written format. And from them, the Buddhism and Jainism, yet we have that controversy, the Patanjali or the Buddha is whoever is the earlier. Then comes to the Tantric age, and then the Swami Gorakshanath, who propounded the Hatha Yoga system. Till here, the entire literature or the entire practice was in the language of Sanskrit. So from here onwards, when it came to the modern system, then it changes from Sanskrit to the other languages, mainly because of Western invasion or Westerners who showed very interest in these yogic systems. So then they started everything translating into English, and then we also started following the same thing because that's very convenient to us because we are not initially trained in Sanskrit. What is missing? So why Sanskrit is very, very essential? So we all know that Sanskrit has served as a significant medium of transmitting traditional sciences. All traditional sciences, not only the yoga, even Ayurveda, Ayurveda, yoga, so on and so forth, Jyotishya, Vastu Shastra, so on and so forth. All these ancient texts written in Sanskrit covers diverse subjects, not only these traditional subjects like Ayurveda, yoga, even mathematics, astronomy, medicine, linguistics, so on and so forth. So the Sanskrit structure and grammar enable precise communication across various disciplines. Though these are different systems, whatever the yoga, Vastu Shastra, Jyotishya, Ayurveda, so on and so forth, even the mathematics, astronomy, but all of them have one Adhyatma root. Means they are all interdependent. Even if we study astronomy, there is a component of Adhyatma. If we study yoga, there is a component of Adhyatma. That means to say that even if we study yoga, we have a reference. We can go back to the astronomy and get the reference for that also. So that's where Sanskrit is essential. There's also in the metallurgy, the famous works, Rasaratnakara and Rasendra Mangalam, provide detailed descriptions. Even today, recently, we came across a big hype, eating and drinking food with a copper plate and copper glass, increases the health, age, so on and so forth. So, though it is a concept of Ayurveda or yoga, but there is a root of metallurgy in that one. So that's how I am just saying that it's a transdisciplinary. So that transdisciplinary connection we get only by studying Sanskrit. Otherwise, literally in English, whatever is yoga, we just translate in English and we study that only, that's it. So its relation to other systems, we will not be able to get an idea. So only with Sanskrit, we will be able to connect all these systems and get the reference from all these sciences. So Vedas are the main root for this yoga, and that's mainly written in the Sanskrit. That serves as the origin of yoga. So various yogic techniques are usually termed in Sanskrit terms. Whatever you take asanas or pranayama or meditation, in asanas, padahastasana, bhujangasana, shalabhasana, so on and so forth, all these things are Sanskrit terms. It's not just the terms, the under meaning also, the literal meaning is in depth in that term. So the familiarity with this Sanskrit terminology deepens the understanding of this ancient wisdom encapsulated in yogic texts. That's what I said. So it's not just the literal meaning. So that itself, if we dig into deep, we get many more informations on that subject. That's why the Sanskrit is very, very essential. But in contemporary yoga practice, means nowadays, though we are not experts of Sanskrit, so we take only the translated terminologies to teach and practice this yoga. But even then, that component also has a component of Sanskrit. So for example, I said the Yoga Sutra, Yogaschitta Vritti Nirodhaha, okay, which means that yoga is the hindering of the modifications of the thinking principle. So the sutra is only one, Yogaschitta Vritti Nirodhaha, but it can be explained in different ways. We'll see that. You can see the various authors have defined it in a different way. So Hariharananda Aranya, he translates the verse as yoga is the suppressions of the modifications of the mind. So he coined it as a suppression of the modification in the mind. Is Yogaschitta Vritti Nirodhaha. Similarly, the Taimini translates it as yoga is the inhibition of the modifications of the mind. So one suppression, here comes the inhibition. Another author, Vyasa Houston, yoga is the nirodha. That means the process of ending of the vritti, the modifications happening in the mind. That's the field of consciousness, he coined it as. So similarly, Swami Sachidananda, he translated it as the restraint of the modifications of the mind stuff is yoga. So like that, many authors, the sutra is the only one, but the translations, that's what I said, the sutra, if you dig it and if you bifurcate, so it gives different meanings. But ultimately the solution is the same, but the meanings are different. So that's why the etymology is very, very important, the root word, the dhatu. Though here the different scholars provide the unique perspectives on the verse. Okay? Some say that it's a restraining, some say that it is inhibiting, some say it is a controlling. Okay? But each perspective contributes to a comprehensive understanding of the verse. So if otherwise, if only one gives the definition and if we just follow that, it will be restricted only to that. We will not be able to expand the entire meaning behind that. So that's why the understanding the etymology of Sanskrit words in yoga unveils deeper layers of meaning and offers a more profound understanding of the concepts conveyed. Okay? Exploring the roots, suffixes, and prefixes provides insights into historical and cultural contexts. Okay? It's not only the philosophical, and then we can relate it to the cultural linking, and that's how we can expand the definitions or the understandings. Even etymology expands one's vocabulary and reveals connections and patterns among words. Okay? So, because of that only we can connect one word to the other word, and even one sentence to the other sentence, and we can go more deep into that. This deepens the grasp of the language, enabling practitioners to navigate and explore the rich tapestry of meaning woven into yogic texts. Means, how much ever we dig it, we can get out the layers of that word's meaning, and we can expand its meanings. So by respecting and learning Sanskrit, individuals can explore the language's intricacies, etymology, and derivation, leading to a more profound understanding of yogic concepts. So for example, we use a term called prana. So how to relate that word prana? There is literally in English, there is no translation. So we usually say prana is the life force. So but again we have further classification of prana, prana, apana, udana, samana, vyana. But if we go to the English translation, how do we classify this? And again in the Upaprana we have sub-classifications. So that's how the language of Sanskrit is very, very essential in understanding the hidden meanings of these yogic terminologies. So with this, we started collaborating with Sanskrit scholars, and then we prepared some self-educational materials. That's what we expect from the Sanskrit experts to help us in digging out all these things and give a standard translation or the commentaries on the texts of yoga which is written in the Sanskrit language. We have developed the two models, Yoga Sutras of Patanjali and Hatha Yoga Pradipika. It's not just the digging of the meaning, because even in the pronunciation also makes a very, very important role. As we were listening in the morning, just how we interchange the words or how we makes the difference in pronouncing the word, how it changes the meaning. So that's how the pronunciation also plays an important role. So in these two models, it is a recitation learning mode. It is means the sloka comes in Sanskrit, then it's translation in English, and how to pronounce it. With first the guru will pronounce it, we have to listen, and then we have to practice that, and then both of them together practice. So this is how we have developed these models, so that the exact pronunciation and the exact Guru Parampara practice retains the same. So similarly, we are also developing Yoga Ratnavali, Heranda Samhita and Shiva Samhita models. And that's what I was telling, that yoga is not into that Yoga Shastra, because the terms used in yoga also we can find elsewhere also. So that is also very, very important. We can find these yogic terminologies in Puranas, okay, in so many other ancient literatures. So we are compiling all these things. So that can be done only by Sanskrit experts. So dictionary of yoga. Any of these yogic words, the root if we give, then this dictionary digs and says that where and all this word is used in different ancient Indian traditional texts. So one we have compiled already, an overview of the Yoga Upanishads and their contribution to yoga. and we are coming out with Shiva Samhita, Hatha Yoga Pradipika, and Yoga in Mahabharata. Whatever the terms of yoga which is appeared in the Mahabharata, so that also we want to compile all these things. So that work can be done only by the Sanskrit experts. So in summary, so by delving into Sanskrit and studying its etymology, practitioners can deepen their understanding of yoga, appreciate its ancient roots. Otherwise, these ancient roots will be negated. So it will be taken only into the physical aspect of yoga. So, and gain insights into the intricate understanding of yogic texts. So this understanding enhances the overall engagement with yoga, enabling a more authentic and transformative experiences. Thank you very much. This is what I just wanted to convey. In this occasion, I just like to especially thank the Deputy Secretary, Sri Suresh Babu, because many times he has contacted me to give the topic, because it's a new field for us, so searching the topic itself was very difficult for us. So I just apologize for delay from my side, sir, and thank you very much.
आचार्याः एच.एस्. वादिराजमहाभागाः एतावत्पर्यन्तं संस्कृतभाषायाः भूमिकाम् अधिकृत्य योगस्य अध्ययने अथवा अभ्यासे वा संस्कृतस्य भूमिकाम् अधिकृत्य तैः पत्रं प्रस्तुतमस्ति। अस्य सारः अयमेव भवति, संस्कृतस्य अयं विशेषः भवति, एकः शब्दः अनेके अर्थाः। एकः शब्दः अर्थास्तु अनेके भवन्ति, सन्दर्भवशात् अर्थग्रहणं कर्तव्यं भवति। यतोहि योगशब्दस्यैव अनेके अर्थाः भवन्ति। तैः अनेके शब्दाः अत्र प्रयुक्ताः, योगः इति, वास्तु इति, ज्योतिषमिति अनेके शब्दाः। तेषां शब्दानाम् अन्यभाषासु भाषान्तरीकरणं तुष्यकमेव, कर्तुमेव न शक्यते। अतः संस्कृतस्य अध्ययनम् आधुनिकविज्ञाने वा भवतु प्राचीनविज्ञाने वा भवतु, संस्कृतशब्दानां प्रयोगे तावत् संस्कृतस्य अध्ययनम् अत्यन्तम् आवश्यकं भवति इति तेषाम् अभिप्रायः। अधुना अनन्तरं पत्रं प्रस्तुवन्ति अस्माकं राष्ट्रीयसंस्कृतविश्वविद्यालयस्य आचार्याः भवन्ति के गणपतिभट्टमहाभागाः। ते तु योगः तथा श्रीकृष्णेन भगवद्गीतायां कथितः योगः इति, यतोहि भगवद्गीतायां योगमधिकृत्य बहुविस्तरेण श्रीकृष्णेन उपदिष्टमस्ति। तत्तु निर्विघ्नरूपेण उपदेष्टव्यं चेत् गणपतिभट्टाः एव समर्थाः। ते अद्वैतवेदान्ते अत्यन्तम् एवं न्याये च अत्यन्तं निष्णाताः भवन्ति। अनेकभाषासु ते निष्णाताः भवन्ति। तादृशाः अस्माकं गणपतिभट्टमहाभागाः इदानीं स्वीयं पत्रं प्रस्तुवन्तु इति अहं प्रार्थयामि।
श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। आचार्यः कामकोटीशः गोडाश्रीवंशजो गुरुः, तयोः संस्मरणादेव जन्म मे सफलं ध्रुवं। चन्द्रशेखरयतेः पाद पद्मयोः स्मरणं सदा सर्वदा सर्वशिष्याणां कुर्यात् पापविनाशनम्। अधिमन्त्यं विराजमानाः अस्य सत्रस्य अध्यक्षाः नागेन्द्रमहाभागाः, एवमेव पत्रसमर्पणाय समागताः वादिराजप्रभृतयः, वेदिकायाः वितर्द्याश्च पुरतः दृश्यमानाः पण्डितवरेण्याः, श्रोतुं समागताः शिष्याः, वार्ताहराश्च सर्वेभ्यः मदीयाः प्रणामाः। संस्कृतसमुन्मेष इति विशिष्टे कार्यक्रमेऽस्मिन् यदिदं सत्रं वर्तते योगविषयकं, तत्र भागग्रहणे ममापि योगः लब्धः इति कृत्वा अहं सन्तोषम् अनुभवामि। यतोहि महानुभावसंसर्गः कस्य नोन्नतिकारकः इति सुभाषितं वदति। अतः महानुभावानां एतेषां सर्वेषां संसर्गः, सम्बन्धः, सुयोगः मम गुरूणाम् एवं परमाचार्याणाम् अनुग्रहेण प्राप्त इति अहं सुतराम् आनन्दम् अनुभवामि। योगशब्दार्थः योगशब्दः। अहं संस्कृतेनैव मदीयं पत्रं समर्पयामि, यतोहि संस्कृतसमुन्मेषः। अतः अहं मम पत्रं संस्कृते एव समर्पयितुम् इच्छामि। वस्तुतश्चिन्त्यमाने अधुना योगः इत्युक्ते सर्वे आसनं जानन्ति, आसनं प्रदर्शयन्ति, तत्रैव रूढः सञ्जातः योगशब्दः। भवन्तः योगं जानन्ति वा इति पृष्टे सति आसनं प्रदर्शयन्ति, आसनद्वारा एव योगशब्दार्थः अस्माभिः अधुनातनकाले दृश्यमानः वर्तते। परन्तु योगशब्दस्य प्रयोगः, योगशब्दार्थश्च भगवद्गीतायां श्रीकृष्णेन उक्तः विभिन्नेषु सन्दर्भेषु विविधश्लोकेषु विभिन्न अर्थतां भजते इति निवेदयितुम् अहम् इच्छामि। यतोहि भगवद्गीतायां भाष्ये शङ्करभगवत्पादैः अनेकत्र अनेके अर्थाः वर्णिताः। प्रथमतया योगशब्दार्थः ज्ञातव्यश्चेत् योगशब्दः कस्मिन् अध्याये कथं वा प्रयुक्तः, कतिवारं वा प्रयुक्तः इति प्रथमतः ज्ञातव्यं। सङ्गतिः का तत्र, एवञ्च तां सङ्गतिम् अनुसृत्य तत्र भगवत्पादैः अर्थः वर्णितः। वसुधैव कुटुम्बकं जगद्गुरोः श्रीकृष्णस्य वचनस्य भाष्यरचनावसरे योगस्थः कुरुकर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा धनञ्जय इति एकत्र, बुद्धियुक्तो जहातीह उभे सुकृतदुष्कृते तस्मात् योगाय युज्यस्व इत्यत्र योगशब्दः। श्रुतिविप्रतिपन्नाः ते इत्यस्मिन् श्लोके समाधौ अचला बुद्धिः तदा योगम् अवाप्स्यति इति एकत्र योगशब्दः। कर्मणि अकर्म यः पश्येत् अकर्मणि च कर्म यः स बुद्धिमान् मनुष्येषु सयुक्तः कृत्स्नकर्मकृत् इति अर्थवर्णनावसरे भाष्ये तस्मादज्ञानसम्भूतं हृत्सं ज्ञान असितात्मना हित्वा येनं संशयं योगम् आत्तिष्ठोत्तिष्ठ भारत इत्यत्र योगः। संन्यासः कर्मयोगश्च निःश्रेयसकरौ उभौ इत्यस्मिन् श्लोके यत् सांख्यैः प्राप्यते स्थानं तद्योगेनापि गम्यते, योगैः अपि गम्यते। तं श्लोकं स्वीकृत्य तस्य अर्थं मनसि निधाय अत्रापि अस्माकं विश्वविद्यालये साङ्ख्ययोगविभागः आरब्धः वर्तते। यं सन्न्यासमिति प्राहुः योगं तं विद्धि सेवया विद्धि पाण्डव इत्यत्र ज्ञानविज्ञानतृप्तात्मा कूटस्थो विजितेन्द्रियः युक्त इत्युच्यते योगी समलोष्टाश्मकाञ्चन इत्यत्र योगशब्दः। यदा दीपः निवातस्थः इत्यस्मिन् योगिनः यतचित्तस्य तत्रापि तं विद्या दुःखसंयोगवियोगयोगसंज्ञितं स निश्चयेन इत्यादिषु श्लोकेषु आत्मौपमन्येन सर्वत्र समं पश्यति योऽर्जुन सुखं वा यदि वा दुःखं स योगी परमो मतः इत्यत्र अभ्यासयोगयुक्तेन इत्यस्मिन् श्लोके अथ चित्तं समाधातुम् अभ्यासयोगेन ततो माम् इच्छ अप्तुं धनञ्जय इत्येषेषु श्लोकेषु योगशब्दः प्रयुक्तः भगवद्गीतायां। कुत्र कुत्र तत्र अर्थभेदः वर्णितः। यतोहि भगवद्गीतायाः भाष्यं भगवत्पादैः यल्लिखितं तत्र योगस्थः कुरु कर्माणि इत्यस्मिन् श्लोके योगस्थः सन् कुरु कर्माणि केवलम् ईश्वरार्थं तत्रापि ईश्वरो मे तुष्यतु इति संगं त्यक्त्वा अस्माभिः वेदोक्तं कर्म अनुष्ठीयते। यत् कर्म अस्माकं विहितं वर्तते तस्य कर्मणः अनुष्ठाने फलम् अस्माभिः प्राप्यते एव। फलम् अनुद्दिश्य कोऽपि कर्मानुष्ठानं न करोति। इदं मे भूयात् वेदोपि वदति। स्वर्गः प्राप्तव्यश्चेत् यागः अनुष्ठेयो भवति। वेद एव अस्मान् उपदिशति। परन्तु वेदान्तिनः वदन्ति केवलम् ईश्वरार्पणबुद्ध्या एव कर्माणि अनुष्ठेयानि भवन्ति। तस्मात् योगस्थः सन् भवान् केवलम् ईश्वरार्थम् ईश्वरार्पणबुद्ध्या एव कर्म अनुष्ठेयं भवति इति तत्र भाष्ये वर्णितम्। तत्रैव भाष्ये फलतृष्णाशून्येन क्रियमाणे कर्मणि सत्त्वशुद्धिदा ज्ञानप्राप्तिलक्षणा सिद्धिः तत् विपर्ययजा असिद्धिः तयोः सिद्ध्यसिद्ध्ययोः अपि समः तुल्यो भूत्वा कर्म कुरु। अर्थात् कः असौ योगः यत्रस्थः कुरु इति उक्तम् इदमेव तत् सिद्धि असिद्ध्ययोः समत्वं योग उच्यते। एवञ्च तत्र भाष्यवर्णनावसरे योगशब्दार्थः अयमेव समो भूत्वा कार्यं कर्तव्यं तादृशं समत्वमेव योगः इति कथितम्। एवञ्च तत्र आसनादीनां प्रस्तावः नास्ति। यतोहि भगवद्गीतायाः अर्थवर्णनम् अद्वैतपरकं वर्तते। तादृश अद्वैततत्त्वप्रतिपादनार्थं योगशब्दार्थोपि एवमेव वक्तव्यो भवति। एवमेव बुद्धियुक्तो जहातीह उभे सुकृतदुष्कृते ತಸ್ಮಾದ್ ಯೋಗಾಯ ಯುಜ್ಯಸ್ವ ಯೋಗಃ ಕರ್ಮಸು ಕೌಶಲಂ. ಅಸ್ಮಿನ್ನಪಿ ಶ್ಲೋಕೆ ಭಗವತ್ಪಾದೈಃ ಯೋಗೋ ನಾಮ ಕರ್ಮಸು ಕೌಶಲಂ ಇತ್ಯರ್ಥಃ ವರ್ಣಿತಃ. ಬುದ್ಧಿಯುಕ್ತಃ ಕಃ ಬುದ್ಧಿಯುಕ್ತಃ ಇತಿ ಆಕ್ಷೇಪೆ ಸಮತ್ವವಿಷಯಯಾ ಬುದ್ಧಿಯಾ ಯುಕ್ತಃ ಬುದ್ಧಿಯುಕ್ತಃ. एवञ्च पूर्वस्मिन् श्लोके यत् समत्वं भगवता प्रतिपादितं तादृशसमत्वबुद्धिया यः सुकृतदुष्कृते नाम पुण्यपापे परित्यजति जहाति परित्यजति पुण्यपापे सत्वबुद्धिज्ञानप्राप्तिद्वारेण तस्मा समत्वबुद्धियोगाय युज्यस्व घटस्व. यतो हि योगः कर्मसु कौशलं भवति. वर्तमानस्य स्वधर्म आख्यस्य यः धर्मः अस्माकं वेदद्वारा विहितः वर्तते तादृश स्वधर्माख्येषु कर्मसु वर्तमानस्य या सिद्धि असिद्ध्योः समत्वबुद्धिः ईश्वरार्पितचेतः तया तत्कौशलं नाम कुशलभावः तद्धि कौशलं बन्धस्वभावानि अपि कर्माणि समत्वबुद्धया स्वभावात् निवर्तन्ते. अर्थात् अस्माभिः यानि कर्माणि अनुष्ठीयन्ते तत्फलद्वारा वयं बद्धाः भवामः. यदि बद्धाः भवामः तदा अस्माभिः मोक्षः प्राप्तुं नैव शक्यते. बन्धात् मोक्षः अपेक्षितः. तन्निमित्तकारणीभूतं यत् तत् कर्मणः बन्धनिवारणार्थम् अपेक्षितसत्त्वशुद्धिर्वा तस्मिन् घटस्व. एवञ्च तस्मात् समत्वबुद्धियुक्तो भव. एवञ्च यदि अस्माभिः कार्यं कृतं तस्य सुखं वा फलं स्यात् दुःखं वा फलं स्यात् तदा अस्माभिः तत्र चिन्तनं न कर्तव्यं. समत्वबुद्ध्या स्थातव्यं. तादृशसमत्वभावः यः वर्तते स एव योगशब्दार्थः इति श्रीकृष्णेन कथितं भाष्ये उक्तञ्च. तदनु श्रुतिविप्रतिपन्नाः ते यदा स्थास्यति निश्चला समाधौ अचला बुद्धिः तदा योगम् अवाप्स्यसि इति श्रीकृष्णः उपदिशति. श्रुतिविप्रतिपन्नाः नाम अनेकसाध्यसाधनसम्बन्धप्रकाशनश्रुतिभिः श्रवणैः विप्रतिपन्नाः नानाप्रतिपन्नाः श्रुतिविप्रतिपन्नाः विक्षिप्ता सति ते तव बुद्धिः यदा यस्मिन् काले स्थास्यति स्थिरीभूता भविष्यति निश्चला च भविष्यति विक्षेप चलनवर्जिता सति समाधौ समाधीयते चित्तं तव तस्मिन् इति समाधिः आत्मा तस्मिन् आत्मनि अचला तत्रापि विकल्पवर्जिता इति एतत् बुद्धिः अन्तःकरणं तदा तस्मिन् काले योगम् अवाप्स्यसि विवेकप्रज्ञां समाधिं प्राप्स्यसि इति भगवत्पादानां वचनं. श्रुतिविप्रतिपन्नाः विप्रतिपत्तिर्नाम संशयः. श्रुत्यर्थश्रवणे अथवा श्रुतीनां श्रवणे अनेकविधश्रुतयः भवन्ति. श्रुतीनाम् अर्थ अवगमनसन्दर्भे अथवा अनुष्ठानसन्दर्भे वा विविधानि फलानि भवन्ति. तादृशफलप्राप्त्यर्थं यः अस्माकं प्रयत्नः वर्तते सोऽपि श्रुत्या एव अस्माभिः प्राप्तः वर्तते. अस्माकं मनः तादृशं फलम् अनुसृत्य सर्वत्र प्रसरति. मनः प्रसरति इत्युक्ते अस्माकं चित्तवृत्तिः तत्र गच्छति इत्यर्थः. एवञ्च विषयेषु अस्माकं चित्तस्य वृत्तिः गच्छति. वेदान्तिनः वदन्ति अस्माकम् अन्तःकरणं तैजसं विषयं प्रति गच्छति विषयाकारेण परिणमते तद्वारा अस्माभिः विषयस्य प्रत्यक्षं क्रियते इति वेदान्तिनां तत्त्वं। तथा च ये ये विषयाः लाभादयः पुण्यादयः भवन्ति तेषु अस्माकं चित्तं सुलभतया गच्छति। तादृशवृत्तीनाम् अनेकत्वात् तत्र अस्माकं वृत्तिर्न गच्छतु, एकत्रैव समाधौ भवतु। तेन च अस्माकम् अन्तःकरणं शुद्धं भवति। शुद्धे अन्तःकरणे बिम्बस्य ईश्वरस्य साक्षात्कारः भवितुम् अर्हति। यदि चित्तविक्षेपः भवति तदा अस्माकम् अन्तःकरणं शुद्धं न भवति, निर्मलं न भवति। निर्मलं न भवति चेत् अन्तःकरणे वृत्तिद्वारा अथवा अन्तिमवृत्तिद्वारा वा साक्षात्कारः भवितुं नार्हति। तस्मात् तस्मिन् काले त्वं योगम् अवाप्स्यसि, विवेकप्रज्ञां समाधिं प्राप्स्यति। तावत् तत्र योगशब्दार्थः विवेकप्रज्ञा इत्यर्थेन वर्णितः। महान् विचारः अन्यत्र कर्मणि अकर्मयः पश्येत् अकर्मणि च कर्मयः स बुद्धिमान् मनुष्येषु सयुक्तः कृत्स्नकर्मकृत् इत्युक्त्वा तदनु तस्मादज्ञानसम्भूतं हृस्थं ज्ञान असिना आत्मनः छित्त्वा येनं संशयं योगम् आत्तिष्ठोत्तिष्ठ भारत। पूर्वं यदुक्तं तत्सर्वमपि अज्ञानसम्भूतं मायया जातं। तस्मात् माया अनादिकालतः जायमाना वर्तते। षडस्माकम् अनादयः इति वेदान्तिनः वदन्ति। तत्र माया प्रसिद्धा अनादिभूता, परन्तु तस्याः मायायाः खण्डनं कर्तव्यं चेत् तादृशमेव यत् बलवत् साधनं स्यात्। तादृशबलवत् साधनेन विना अनादिकालतः सम्पन्ना इयं माया खण्डयितुं न शक्यते इति कृत्वा तद्विरुद्धं किञ्चित् पदार्थम् अन्विषति। स एव पदार्थः ज्ञानपदार्थः असिस्थाने स्थितः। तस्माद् अज्ञानसम्भूतं हृस्थम्। अस्माकं सर्वेषां मनसि विद्यमानं यदज्ञातं, मनः अपि अज्ञानस्यैव कार्यं भवति। तस्मात् मनसि विद्यमानं तत् ज्ञानासिना निवर्तते चेत्, खण्डयितुं शक्यते चेत् तदा छित्त्वा येनं संशयं योगम् आत्तिष्ठोत्तिष्ठ भारत इत्यत्र संशयः इत्युक्ते आत्मविषयकः संशयः इति भगवद्गीतायां भाष्ये प्रतिपादितं। तस्मात् पापिष्ठं तेषां शब्दप्रयोगं पश्यतु। इयं माया वा भवतु, अज्ञानसम्भूतं कार्यं वा भवतु, तत्सर्वं पापिष्ठम् अज्ञानात् अविवेकात् जातम्। अज्ञानं नाम अविवेकः, माया इत्यादि अविद्या इत्यादि शब्दैः उच्यमानं तत् हृत्सं हृदि बुद्धौ स्थितं ज्ञानासिना नाम शोकमोहादिदोषहरं सम्यक् दर्शनं नाम आत्मदर्शनं ज्ञानं तदेव असिः खड्गः नाम खड्गस्थाने स्थितं यत् विवेकप्रज्ञानं ज्ञानं तेन ज्ञानासिना आत्मविषयकं संशयं निवारय। इयं च माया आत्मविषयसंशयद्वारा एव विक्षिपति अथवा परिणमति। आत्मनः आवृता इयं माया, तस्याः मायायाः शक्तिद्वयं, परिणामात्मिका शक्तिः, विवर्तात्मिका, तद्वयमपि तादृशशक्तिद्वयं महती शक्तिः सा, तां शक्तिं निवारयितुं ज्ञानात्मकमेव एकम् आयुधं पर्याप्तं भवति। तस्मात् तादृशसंशयनिवारणार्थं यतस्व, यतो हि अयञ्च संशयः परेषां संशयः न, अस्माकमेव संशयः अस्मासु विद्यमानः संशयः अस्माभिरेव परिहर्तव्यो भवति परेषां विद्यमानः संशयः परैः अपहर्तव्यो भवति निवारणीयो भवति तस्मात् आत्मा तु अयमात्मा ब्रह्म इत्युक्तरीत्या अयम् अस्माकमेव आत्मविषयकः संशयः परेण छेत्तुं नैव शक्यते येन स्वस्य इति विशेषणं दत्तम् आत्मविषयकसंशय इति सूचना अपि छित्त्वा येनं संशयं स्वविनाशहेतुभूतं योगं नाम तत्र सम्यक् दर्शन उपाय कर्मानुष्ठानम् इत्यर्थः वर्णितः एवञ्च अत्र योगशब्दार्थः सम्यक् दर्शन उपाय कर्मानुष्ठानम् एवञ्च कर्मानुष्ठाने सति चित्तशुद्धिर्जायते परम्परया मोक्षं प्रति कारणं भवति इत्यतः हेतोः अत्र सम्यक् दर्शन उपाय कर्मानुष्ठानम् इत्यर्थः योगशब्दार्थः प्रतिपादितः श्रीकृष्णेन सन्न्यासः कर्मयोगश्च निःश्रेयसकरौ उभौ तयोस्तु कर्मसन्न्यासात् कर्मयोगः विशिष्यते इति अपरश्लोकः सन्यास परिसमापयामि सन्यासः नाम कर्मणां परित्यागः कर्मयोगः स च तेषाम् अनुष्ठानम् एकत्र सन्यासः अपरत्र कर्मणाम् अनुष्ठानम् एवञ्च एकत्र अनुष्ठानार्थकः अपरत्र सन्यासार्थकः त्यागार्थकः एवञ्च कर्मणां परित्यागः कर्मयोगः तेषाम् अनुष्ठानं कर्मणाम् अनुष्ठानं द्वयमपि निःश्रेयसकरौ कथम् इत्युक्ते द्वयोः अपि ज्ञानोत्पत्तिहेतुत्वमस्ति ज्ञान उत्पत्तिं प्रति कारणत्वम् उभयोरप्यस्ति इति कृत्वा द्वाभ्यामपि तत्र योगत्वं युज्यते तत्रापि कर्मयोगः विशिष्यते इति स्तौति भगवान् कुतः इत्युक्ते सन्न्यासकर्मयोगयोर्मध्ये वस्तुतः भिन्नपुरुषानुष्ठानत्वमस्ति एकः सन्न्यसति अपरः अनुष्ठानं करोति अधिकरणद्वयम् अथवा अनुष्ठानं करोति यः पुरुषः अपरोपि तर्हि भिन्नपुरुषानुष्ठानत्वात् विरुद्धयोः फले सति फलं तु विरुद्धमेव भवितव्यं तत् कथं समत्वं कथं वा सः भगवान् अर्थं वर्णयति इत्युक्ते सांख्ययोगौ पृथक् बालाः प्रवदन्ति न पंडिताः एकमप्यास्थितः सम्यक् उभयोर्विन्दते फलम् अर्थात पंडिताः एकमेव फलम् अविरुद्धं वाञ्छन्ति इदन्तु भगवत्पादानां भाष्यं कथं नाम एकमपि सांख्ययोगयोः सम्यक् आस्थितः सम्यक् अनुष्ठितवान् उभयोः फलं विन्दते उभयोः तदेव निःश्रेयसं फलम् अतः न फले विरोधः अस्ति इति प्रतिपादितम् एवमेव अनेकत्र श्लोकेषु योगशब्दार्थः वर्णितः मम अवकाशः एतावानेव वर्तते मम योगः तावानेव इति मत्वा अवकाशं दत्तवद्भ्यः सर्वेभ्यः धन्यवादं समर्प्य विरमामि विस्तरात् नमांसि।
धन्यवादाः। कश्चित् वेदान्ते योगशब्दं कथं व्याख्याति कश्चन पातञ्जलयोगनिष्णातः योगशब्दं कथं व्याख्याति एवमेव ज्योतिष्कः भवति चेत् योगशब्दम् अन्यथा व्याख्याति एवं योगशब्दः विभिन्नदृष्ट्या व्याख्यातुं शक्यः इति अस्माभिः इदानीम् अवगतम्। इदानीम् आधुनिक तंत्रज्ञानी अस्माकं अनन्तरं भवन्ति मोहनराघवन् महाभागाः आचार्याः। एते तु IIT हैदराबाद मध्ये बायोमेडिकल इंजीनियरिंग डिपार्ट्मेंट मध्ये एते आचार्याः सन्ति। एतेषां अभिरुचिः वर्तते लघुकथानिर्माणेपि। एतैः लघुकथाः अपि निर्मिताः सन्ति। तादृशाः योगविषये अत्यन्तम् आसक्ताः ते। योग तथा आयुर्वेद इत्यस्मिन् विषये शारीरिकविज्ञाने शारीरिकसंरचनायां योगस्य तथा आयुर्वेदविज्ञानस्य च उपायः अथवा लाभः कथं भवति इति अस्मिन् विषये एते अत्यन्तम् आसक्ताः सन्ति। तानहं सम्प्रार्थये अधुना ते स्वकीयं पत्रम् इदानीं प्रस्तुवन्ति। तत्र सुस्थितेः आधुनिकचिकित्सायाः सन्दर्भे योगसंस्कृतकोशस्य अन्वेषणम् इति एकः विषयः। अमुं विषयम् आश्रित्य एते मोहन राघवन् महाभागाः आचार्याः ते स्वीयं पत्रं प्रस्तुवन्तु इति अहं प्रार्थयामि।
नमः सदसे नमः सदसस्पतये नमः सखीनां पुरोगानां चक्षुषे नमो दिवे नमः पृथिव्यै सप्रथसभां मे गोपाय के च सभ्याः सभासदः तानिन्द्रियावतः कुरु सर्वमायुर्भासत। नमस्सदसे नमस्सदसस्पतिये। My pranams to Adhyaksh Mahoday and all the other dignitaries and great acharyas present here. The title of my presentation today will be on a few terms of the Yoga Shastra, very well known terms of the Yoga Shastra, something that we have all been listening to, hearing about, we have learned them all. But I'm just going to call attention to some of these terms in the context of certain results and certain new discoveries that have happened in the area of psychology, neuroscience, cognitive science, etc. And then the idea here is to show how deep and insightful the Yoga Shastra was in these matters, and also to project certain differences between the same subject and the same results which have been arrived at both by our rishis and the Yoga Shastrajñas on one side and the modern researchers. The important aspect that I'm going to be talking about today are largely the major health challenges that exist today, and these are largely around the mental wellness, which are all very well known: anxiety, there is depression, addiction, and certain lifestyle related conditions such as obesity, substance abuse, and all of these. So these are primarily some of the most important challenges faced by the healthcare sector, and these are the ones that are the top targets today for identifying cures, solutions, management, etc. And very interestingly, these are also the areas where I very often get requests to work with multiple players, both from a medical science perspective and also from a perspective of yoga and Ayurveda. I am fortunate enough to be involved with both departments in my institute. One is the Department of Biomedical Engineering, where I work on neuroscience and cognitive aspects, and also the Heritage Science and Technology, where I work on science and technology of yoga. So that was partly been the reason why I chose this subject, because this is the first thing that I very often get asked about. Oh, can you tell me something using yoga that we can apply to anxiety, depression, lifestyle disorders, and so on? And hence, when I start going ahead with this might be a little bit too small to read from a distance, but I will just read it out to you. So just to cut a long story short, one of the very important papers in this area, very well cited paper, talks about what are some of the factors that tell us in advance about how a child will grow up to, or how a person's behavior is going to be, whether somebody is susceptible to depression, anxiety, ADHD, schizophrenia, a variety of different mental conditions, and also about whether people obesity and all of these kind of issues. And this they have actually after a lot of research and a sequence of papers, etc., they have brought it down to something called executive functions, and they say these executive functions, if they are impaired, if people do not exhibit it well enough, then there is a very good chance that they will end up being, be very vulnerable to addictions and a lot of these mental disorders. So now what are these executive functions? So the executive functions are broadly thought to consist of three aspects. The first aspect is of inhibition, the ability to inhibit yourself and stop yourself. One of the classical ways in which people say is, if there is a kid and you put a chocolate in front of the kid and the kid says, I want it now. And now you say, no, you can have it, but 5 minutes later, so hold on. So for those 5 minutes, you have something that you really love in front of you, but you cannot take it. You have to wait until you pick it up. And now for these 5 minutes, you are holding yourself. There is restraint. And this is what is meant by inhibition in this case. Now, another aspect that comes under executive function is working memory. So what is working memory? Now, if I'm given, you ask me, can you please tell me your mobile number? And you reel out a 10-digit number, 95372434426, right? And now if you have to dial it in the intervening period, howsoever short it is, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, you have to take this number, keep it in your head, retain it, and not let it fade away while you enter it. So this is in a way working memory, where you have to hold certain things in memory. And why is it related to the previous concept we talked about? Because unless and until you can inhibit unnecessary thoughts, unless and until you can inhibit the ones that you don't want to, you cannot hold the useful things in memory. And hence working memory and inhibition go hand in hand. And when you are able to demonstrate both of these behaviors, you also have something called cognitive flexibility, which is to see the same thing from a completely different perspective. Correct? So what do you see in front of me? You see a person, and you also see a person wearing a shawl. Somebody sees a professor, somebody sees a speaker. You see the same thing in many, many, many different ways. So this is cognitive flexibility, and these are the three aspects that come under executive function. And now I'm going to talk about, so this is something that modern research has come to and said this is very important for staving off or keeping away mental conditions like depression, anxiety, etc. So now I'm going to dive back into the Yoga Shastra and then see what does Yoga Shastra have to say, and do we see something that's related to these in the Yoga Shastra. I will come to this a little later. So as we all know, Yoga Shastra starts with the Yama and Niyama, which are the preparatory phases. Then come Asana, Pranayama and the Pratyahara. Then finally come the Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi, technically known as Samyama. So what does Yama involve? Right? So here you talk of Ahimsa, Satyam, Asteyam, Brahmacharya and Aparigraha. So what are each of these? If you look at it, what is Ahimsa? Is not to indulge in something that is called Himsa. Right? Sarvata, Sarvada, Sarvabhutanam, Anabhidroha. And that is Ahimsa. Now why would you want to do this? Let us say I am angry against somebody. The moment you are angry, your first and natural response to it is to cause some harm. Go hit him, throw something at him, do something to him, or maybe even shout at him. Right? This is natural. But to cut the flow of this natural anger and to stop it, restraint calls for inhibition. It calls for stopping something that very naturally proceeds from us. Our pravritti must be stopped. It should be, there calls for dhamma, there calls for indriya nigraha for us to be able to do this. So this is nothing but inhibition in a very, very specific context. It is an ekadesha of the inhibition that we have been talking about. And now when you look at Satyam, okay, and what is Satyam? Yatharthe Vang Manase Yatha Artha. As the Artha is, hence follows my speech. The vak and the artha to be very true to each other, like Kalidasa says. So why is this something surprising to us? Because now we have the ability, we have the tendency to say what fetches us the best rewards. I am late to class, I am late to school, I walk in, the teacher asks me, hey, why are you late? Sir, traffic jam, sir. The reality could have been that I woke up late, but I want to avoid punishment, and hence to avoid punishment, I say whatever is convenient. Sir, traffic jam, sir. Right? But then, this is not yatha artha. The artha is not what this was. It's not the reality. But now, for me to be able to speak satyam, I need to restrain my natural urge, which tries to maximize my benefits or labha. And hence, satyam is actually an exercise in restraint. Similarly, if you look at asteyam, there is something that is very tempting that somebody else has. Hey, let me have it. Right? This is a natural flow of pravritti. And to stop this pravritti and say, no, asteyam, I don't want to take something that doesn't belong to me. And then, of course, brahmacharyam, very explicitly so, where you are talking of indriya nigraha, whatever the indriyas want to do, whatever they ask for explicitly, do not always give them what they want to have, but only give them what they are allowed to have. Right? So this is brahmacharyam, and similarly is aparigraham. So now, if you look at these, and then similarly yama, niyamas also follow, but I will just stop with this in the interest of time. So when you look at yama and niyamas, what is actually being practiced is our ability to inhibit ourselves and not do something that should not be done. Correct? And now I'm going to jump directly to dharana. What do we do with dharana? I will come back to asana, pratyahara, etc. later on. Okay? So what is dharana? Deshabandhas chittasya dharana. You bound, that is bandha, you bind the chitta to a particular desha. And the desha could be one of the parts of your body, or it could be an external object, like vitaraga vishayam va chittam. So you could choose for the purpose of your dharana some particular object, which could be your ishtamurti, it could be your mantra, a nada, but whatever it is, you want to hold it very steadily in your mind. And what does this call for? To be able to hold something in our minds, in the chitta. If you recall, there was something called working memory, where we hold something in our minds while for a particular period of time. And dharana quite literally says the same thing, that you hold it in your chitta. And what you hold in your chitta may be different here, but here the basic act remains the same. And then now you take it forward, into dhyana. And when you look at dhyana, what do you say? Tatra pratyekatanata. Whatever was your object of dharana, that alone must stay and nothing else must be allowed to come in. There is another definition in another place which says taila dhara vadavichinna smriti santatihi dhyanam. So, like the taila dhara, a viscous fluid flowing, it doesn't move, it doesn't shake, it's almost as if it is still. You don't even see that something is falling, it almost looks like a pillar of oil. So, taila dhara vad avichinna smriti santatihi dhyanam. So, it is almost continuous, unbroken, there is no place, that is nirantaram. There is no antara between any two things. There is no way something else can come into this place, and that is pratyekatanata. And this is dhyanam, where you are taking working memory to a completely new height, where it is completely total and focused, and this finally leads to samadhi, tadevarthamatra nirbhasam. Swarupa shunyam eva samadhi. And that is where the culmination of this whole process that leads to samadhi. Okay? Of course, these are in a different context, but I am just interpreting, or I am just not even interpreting, I am just calling forth the parallels between inhibition, working memory that we talked about there, and the standard well-known concepts of the Yoga Shastra here. So now, what the yoga actually tries to do is start with a regimen of restraint and inhibition, inhibit ones that you don't want to, later on dharana, hold something that you ought to hold in your chitta, and then make it complete with zero interference, and then you proceed to dhyana and samadhi. But then between the inhibition and holding something in it, you need a few more steps, which is what Yoga Shastra says, but not necessarily modern medicine does. And what are the things in between? You might have stopped what is not good, but then still it does not automatically mean you will be able to hold something in your chitta. For that, there are different aspects. For example, our body, the physical body exists. That has not been stabilized yet. Your mind may have been controlled, which is of course the most important aspect, but your body is still not always in control. And hence you must have asana, which again says sthira sukham asanam. Here again it must be sthiram. That is a very important point to note. It's not about acrobatics. It's about getting into a posture which is sthiram and also gives you sukham. And then what is the samapatti of this? Which is, when do you have asana siddhi? When you can hold that posture without any effort. That is the end of asana. And then similarly pranayama. And then finally, if you start looking at pratyahara, what does pratyahara do? This is exactly what is the missing link between just inhibition and holding something in our minds. Now, I could have inhibited some other aspects, but then now what happens is the normal flow always tends to go back outside. Vishayeshu vicharatam indriyanam balat aharanam. The indriyas always look for their objects outside, but then you have inhibited it now, which is what we practice so much with yama and niyama. My eyes want to see something beautiful. My ears want to hear something nice. My tongue wants to taste something. All of these panchendriyas are asking what they want. And in yama and niyama, we learned how to stop them to an extent. But stopping them doesn't mean you can turn them inside. But to turn them inside calls for explicit effort, which is what pratyahara does. Because it says, Vishayeshu vicharatam indriyanam balat aharanam. And then you take it back inwards. And that is when you become qualified to do dharana, which is holding your ishtamurti or your mantra in your chitta. So, having said all of these, I would like to wind up with a quick few words about the comparison between these two aspects. So we have talked about modern medicine, which talks of inhibition, talks of working memory. We saw that in the Ashtanga Yoga, the same principles have been employed already. While you start with a regimen that allow you to inhibit yourself, you also have methods to hold things in your chitta, and you also have some additional steps. But the most important aspect to note here is the depth of what you are trying to do and what is the end goal. The end goal in modern medicine is largely about not having any disease, arogata. And not having any disease, and probably also being a little bit happy and quite okay and at ease. And that's about it. That's where things end. But when you look at Yoga Shastram, or for that matter, any of the Indic Shastram, what is the real big goal? It is the Anandam. It is the Sukha. It is the Parama Sukha. It is the Atma Sukha. And in very, very many different Shastras talk about it in very many different ways. But eventually all the Shastras, they will always start or end with either abolishment of dukkha, like Sankhya starts with dukkha traya bhighatat. Okay? And eventually you always end with Anandam Brahmeti Vyajanat. So you always go and end in Ananda. And this is where the Indic Shastras, whether it is Vedanta, Yoga, or any of the other Shastras, differ profoundly with modern medicine, because your stakes are bigger. You are aiming for something that is astronomical, something that is of a massive scale, whereas modern medicine is probably happy with abolishing disease and being happy so you can go back to your Indriyeshu Vicharatam. Right? So, and then you go back to, all the movement of the Indriyas in the external world, and that is where the difference happens. And that is why the Yoga Shastras and the other relevant Shastras are something that is completely of a different class and of a different order altogether, and hence they are not even comparable. However, still, the basic working principles, it is very interesting to see that the same principles that modern medicine has actually uncovered, the same have been already uncovered in the yoga and developed much, much, much further and taken to its logical conclusion for the happiness of everybody. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramaya.
आधुनिक विज्ञानिभिः कथं वा तत्र व्याख्यानं क्रियते इति अधुना अस्माभिः श्रुतम्। एतेषां पत्रस्य अयमेव अभिप्रायः, मन एव मनुष्याणां कारणं बन्धमोक्षयोः। बन्धः मोक्षः नाम प्रवृत्तिः निवृत्तिः। एकस्मिन् कार्ये प्रवृत्तिः, एकस्मात् कार्यात् निवृत्तिः कथं भवति, मनसः प्रवृत्तिः कीदृशी भवति इति सम्यक् तैः व्याख्यातम्। इतः परम् अस्माकम् अध्यक्षाः गौरवार्हाः भवन्ति, तेषाम् इदानीम् अन्तिमवचनानि भवन्ति। एते तु अनेक पुरस्कारैः विभूषिताः इति न वक्तव्यम्। एते अनेक पुरस्काराणाम् एते विभूषकाः भवन्ति। लोके तादृशाः केचन एव भवन्ति। पुरस्काराः विभूष्यन्ते कैश्चिदेव, तादृशाः एते भवन्ति। भारतसर्वकारेण पद्मश्री पुरस्कारेण पुरस्कृताः, एवं ग्लोबल पीस अवार्ड एतेन पुरस्कृताः, योगश्री इति, मैन ऑफ एक्सलेंस एंड मेनी एक्सलेंस इति, योगगुरु इति, एते अनेक पुरस्कारैः विभूषिताः सन्ति। एतेषाम् अध्यापनवृत्तिस्तावत् अनेक संस्थासु आसीत्। IISc बेंगलूर, यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ ब्रिटिश कोलंबिया, नासा मार्शल स्पेस फ्लाइट सेंटर इत्यादि संस्थासु एते अध्यापनवृत्तिं कृतवन्तः। अधुना एते श्री स्वामी विवेकानंद योग अनुसंधान संस्थाने कुलाधिपतयः सन्ति। एतेषाम् उपस्थितिः अस्माकं योगः एव। अस्माकं सौभाग्येन एते अत्र अध्यक्षपदवीम् अलङ्कुर्वन्ति। तानहं सम्प्रार्थये कृपया स्वीय अध्यक्षभाषणेन अस्मान् उद्बोधयन्तु।
तदक्षरमिदं सर्वं तस्योपव्याख्यानं भूतं भवद्भविष्यदिति सर्वमोङ्कार एव यच्चान्यत्रिकालातीतं तदपि ओङ्कार एव। Namaskar. My dear brothers and sisters, we had three wonderful presentations by our Dr. Vadiraja, who talked about the role of Sanskrit in the study of the practice of yoga. It is very necessary that we must understand the depth which has been enshrined in the Sanskrit texts of yoga. Therefore, he brought out the whole essence so nicely. Then we had the grand presentation by our Professor Ganpati Bhajjai, who narrated the Sri Krishna Bhagavad Gita, how yoga leads us to the Advaita dimension. Advaita is the ultimate reality. And then previously we have Professor Mohan Raghavan, who brought out the explorations of the yogic text lexicon in the context of modern medicine and well-being, the three dimensions of mind. We know modern science over the 400 years has grown tremendously to great heights. What is the purpose of science? Search for reality. Satyanveshana. That is the goal of science. For 400 years, now we have come to a phase we understand probably everything about the physical universe. What is every object made out of? Molecules. Molecules made out of atoms. Atoms made of protons, neutrons, electrons, fundamental particles. What are they made out of? Packets of energy called quarks, energy. So everything in the physical world is nothing but energy, energy, energy. You can calculate precisely how much of energy is in given matter, equals mc square. We also understood the laws that govern them, Newtonian laws of motion, which we all have studied in high school days. It's known as the classical mechanics. That's the deterministic approach. Accordingly, everything is determined. There is no ambiguity. If I leave an object, 1 second, it's 32 feet down. If I launch a rocket towards the moon, then you can trace the trajectory every millisecond, mathematically accurate. But when you go to extremely high speeds, like an electron filling the nucleus with velocities nearing the velocity of light, then the Newtonian mechanics will not hold. You have to go with the quantum mechanics, theory of relativity. What is the difference? If I leave an electron can come down, it can go up, it can go to the front, to the back, right or left. In fact, an electron develops like a globe. Therefore, you cannot say where will be the electron after 1 second. It may be here, it may be here, it may be far away, it may be there. You can only talk about the probability of finding the electron here, 1 second, 1%. Electron finding there, 0.1%. Probability function Schrodinger equation can give you this. Therefore, we understood everything about the physical world. Therefore, we had tremendous success in modern science and technology. When I put man on the moon, building skyscrapers, underwater tunnels, information technology, large number of pharmacological interventions, and surgeries after surgeries, 5,000 types of surgeries. We can replace every part of the body. And we are even racing to change our genes therapy, so that your interpersonality can be changed. All that we have done. But what is happening to science? Science is in a turning point, as Fritz of Capra wrote. It is moving to understand things which are subtle and deeper than the physical world. Is there something like prana? What is it that we call as mind? What is the difference between mind, emotions, intellect, consciousness? Do gods and goddesses exist? What is it that called bhutas, pushachas? Into this region of subtlety and causality, the science has started moving. So in this search for science, we are in a very, very preliminary stage. Therefore, any challenge that is related to these subtle dimensions, we have no solution. Stress is one such. Modern anxieties belong to this category. Asthma, diabetes, hypertension, heart problem, epilepsy, migraine, irritable bowel syndrome, cancer, neuroticism, psychosis, everything belongs to this category because they are not merely physical. They are multidimensional. Mental restlessness, emotional upsurges, deep-rooted psychological conflicts, all are at the base of these challenges. They are multidimensional challenges that we are facing today in the world of Iran science and technology. But our science gives you only one-dimensional solution. Therefore, how can you solve a multidimensional challenge with one-dimensional solution? That's why science or medicine have been a failure in dealing with that. What is the way out? It's here that India comes into picture. Thousands and thousands of years back, our ancient masters developed the whole understanding of the whole creation and beyond. And all this knowledge is available to us in yoga, spirituality, in the texts of Vedas. In the Vedas, all of us know Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samveda, Atharvaveda, one classification. Another classification is Uttara Mimamsa and Purva Mimamsa. Uttara Mimamsa I call the science of the Vedas. Purva Mimamsa is the technology of the Vedas. Science of Vedas contained in the Prasthanatraya, Upanishads. Then, somebody asked me, how many Upanishads are there? I said, I don't know, maybe 1,000. I have seen 800 Upanishads in print. And to put all these things in a very palatable, nice, edited, and a formal way is the Bhagavad Gita. The Shruti Prasthana, Smriti Prasthana. Smriti Prasthana is the editor told. We have the Agnasalka Smriti, Manusmriti, and several Smritis. Bhagavad Gita is one of the best of the Smritis. Then all this has to be put into a beautiful mathematical framework. That is the Brahma Sutra, Nyaya Prasthan. So the Prasthanatraya is the greatest contribution of India to world thought and culture in the field of science. This is the Sanatana Dharma. And in this, we address this question of reality. So this is all contained in the Upanishads. So how did our ancient masters fathom this reality? So it's all in the form of, brought out in the form of teacher-student interaction. There was a student called Bhrigu. Bhrigu comes and asks his teacher, Varuna, sir, I want to know about reality. Please let me know how to do, how to get at that. So Varuna promptly says, Tapasa Brahma Vijignasasva Tapo Brahmeti. He said, go and do tapas. By that tapas you can do. Just like a professor today in science says, go and do experimentation in the lab, they will do. Then student don't know how to do. He looks at teacher, what is tapas, how to do, So he gives a hint. Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayanti abhisam vishanti tad vijignasasva tad brahmeti. He said, see, something is there in you because of which you are born. It is the same thing that sustains you. And when you die, you go back to the same thing. Find out what it is. That is Brahman. That's ultimate reality, he said. So student went. Bhrigu started thinking, what is it, what is it, what is it? And he gets a big flash, maybe after a week, Eureka of Archimedes. And with all thrill, he jumps to the teacher. Sir, I have found it, found it. What did he find? Annam brahmeti vyajanat annadheva kalvimani bhutani jayante anandena jatani jivanti anandam prayanti abhisam vishanti tad vignaya punareva varunam pitaram upasasara adhihi bhagavo brahmeti. Please let me know whether it's right. Look at the whole thing. We are all made out of anna, matter principle. What sustains me is the food that I take. And when I die, I go back to the anna. Therefore, I conclude, sir, anna is Brahma. Anna is ultimate reality, the matter. This is what science has moved. Everything in the world is nothing but matter, 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 we thought. What does the teacher say? Good, 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 my dear boy. Go further. Do deeper, dear sir. Tapasa brahma vijignasasva tapo brahmeti. Deeper tapas. I thought that anna is everything, but he's telling us to go deeper. Goes on thinking and thinking, thinking. Then he thinks of two persons. One person lying down nicely and doing shavasana. Another person had a heart attack and he had died. What is the difference between the two? Prano brahmeti vyajanat pranadheva kalvimani bhutani jayante pranena jatani jivanti pranam prayanti abhisam vishanti tad vignaya punareva varunam pitaramupasasara adhihi bhagavo brahmeti. Again comes back with a great joy. I thought it is anna, no, prana. I may have the body if the prana is not there? No. Again, teacher Varuna says, come on, go deeper. Find out, which is much deeper. Again he goes on thinking and thinking. Then he thinks of a person who had a big accident, he had got a hit in the head and he became unconscious. He is lying down. And the body is there, breathing is there, but something missing. Mano brahmeti vyajanat. I may have the body, I may have prana, but if I don't have the mind, then, therefore, he comes with a new revelation that mind, manas, is Brahman. Mano brahmeti vyajanat. His teacher, incidentally, was his father, Varuna. Then he says, good, good, good. You are going in the right direction. Come on, go ahead, further. Tapasa brahma vijignasasva. No? Again he goes and he thinks of somebody in a mental hospital, maybe neurotic, maybe schizophrenic. But what has happened to him? He has got the mind. Pro ho gaya. Pagalpan. Become mad, hysterical, neurotic. So, controller of the mind missing. That's what we call as Vijnana, intellect, proper intellect. Vijnanam brahmeti vyajanat. Then he was almost sure, yes, I have got the right answer. But teacher says, one more step. Go from where that controller of the mind comes. From there your cognitive control comes up. From where this cognitive flexibility emerges. From where all that what he has told will come up in that thing. Then he goes and starts meditating. Dirgha dhyan kiya. He went on meditating. It took weeks, months, maybe years, who knows. Because he was unable to control the mind, unable to go to the source from where the thoughts are emerging. Chitta vritti nirodha was very easily said and done, but he was not able to do that. But he went on practicing with intensity, with this thing. I have to find out. And the day came where he had that big flash. Anando brahmeti vyajanat. Ananda. They were so full of ananda. He understood. Ananda dheva kalvimani bhutani jayante. Anandena jatani jivanti. Anandam prayanti abhisamvishanti tadvignaya. Having understood, having realized that Ananda is the ultimate reality, is the source from where all thoughts emerge. Chitta vritti nirodha, as Patanjali says, is from where chitta vritti comes. And something different happened. What happened? Saparame vyoman pratisthita. He just stayed in that wonderful state of silence. All pervasive silence is stat. He was in the state of samadhi. He did not come back to the teacher. What happened to the father, teacher? Hey, what happened to my son? It's a long time, maybe years. Probably he went in search of the student. There he is sitting in the deep silence. And he understood that yes, he has reached. Question is, why did he not come back to the teacher? Each time he came back to the teacher, he had a doubt whether I'm correct or not. As long as the intellect is operation, you can get the questions. But if you transcend the intellect, can you have questions? You go to deep sleep, not dream state. Even in dream you can have questions. But in the deep sleep, sushupti, vidyate hrudaya grantihi, chidyante sarva samchayaha, kshiyante chasya karmani, tasmin drushte paravare. This is what Upanishad says. In that state, all your questions vanish. The questions dissolve, and you are in the state of absolute silence. So this is the wonderful exploration that our ancient masters did to understand the ultimate reality. And it is from This Anandamaya Kosha, we call. We have the Vijnanamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, then Annamaya Kosha. Annamaya Kosha is the end product. It is the consciousness-based approach that is the downward causation. The present understanding in science is upward causation. Everything is matter. It is from matter that comes the prana or the mind or the emotions or the intellect, everything comes out of the matter, it is said. You know? Why? Prana is nothing but functioning of the DNA or RNA molecule. What is mind? Functioning of the brain cells. What are emotions? Specific emotional centers in the brain. No? So everything is nothing but matter, we thought. Totally wrong. Therefore, Professor Amit Goswami wrote, you have to completely turn tables in modern science. And this is the great wisdom our ancient masters had done. But where such knowledge base is available, in all our Upanishads, Veda, all in Sanskrit. So, as he rightly said, unless we have the depth understanding of Sanskrit, we will not be able to get at the secrets that are revealed in that. And as we start going into the deeper dimensions of the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, the Yoga Shastras, and many others, you'll be amazed to see that ocean of knowledge that's available. What today we have in science and technology, very, very small compared to what we have in these things. You know? Therefore, I congratulate this university for making this wonderful conference, SAMSKRITA SAMUNMESHA, you know, for doing these things. I'm very happy that Sanskrit is being brought forth to the greater extent. And every student, every teacher should unravel the mystery. New mysteries come up. As you go deeper and deeper, you get newer and newer mystery. Our Professor Dr. Gangadhar knows in Ayurveda how much of knowledge is available. The more you go deep, you unravel the mysteries that are available. It's an ocean of knowledge, all available in Sanskrit dimension. Therefore, it's most appropriate and most useful that this university has come and the government has given the central university status to this wonderful university, and we have such great masters of Advaita Vedanta and other people who have been working on these various dimensions, our Dr. Ganapati Bhattaji and people who have the complete understanding, Shaddarsanas, Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Chanda, Jyotisha, everything is being studied. And the Vedanta, how the whole system evolved continuously from the Charvaka philosophy, came into the Dvaita Siddhanta, then Vishtadvaita, then the Advaita dimensions, all these things have evolved. All this will be done and it has to be brought into practice. What is the ultimate reality? Our people said, there is an ultimate reality which is beyond space, time, causation. You know? That's our original state. Call it as moksha, ultimate reality, perfection, personally called as kaivalya. What is that state? Infinite bliss, infinite knowledge, infinite power, infinite freedom. You know? It is from that the whole universe has come. You know? In the creation, we have 5 layers. Anandamaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, and Annamaya Kosha. Annamaya Kosha is the physical body. Then we have the pranic body, the mind body, the intellectual body, and the bliss body. That is at the individual level, Vyashti level. Samashti level, we have got the electromagnetic field. Then we have the bioplasmic field, much encompassing that. Then we have the astral or the mind field. And much pervasive is the intellectual or the information field. Then the biggest is the bliss field, Anandamaya Kosha. All these fields are in continual interaction. They are ever changing. That's why it's called Jagat. The word comes, Jagat comes from the word Jagatyan Jagat. That which goes on changing is called Jagat. For example, our body, every day 1 billion cells get created, 1 billion cells get destroyed. Since we came to this hall, all our bodies are totally changed. What to talk about the mind and the prana and the emotions, intellect, everything changing. Change is the feature of creation. There was a great Buddhistic philosopher. He said and developed a wonderful model for this change, Kshanikavada. So accurate, so logical, so informative, wonderful. And everybody marveled at these things to a great extent and was accepted for decades. Then came an intellectual student, a brilliant student. He said, "Sir, we marvel at your wonderful thesis that you have done. But I want to ask a question. If everything is changing, is there something does not change?" Is the question he asked. He had no answer. But the later Mahayana group who came, they said, yes, it is Shunya, it is zero. So we have the Kshanikavada and Shunyavada that came into picture. But later on when Shankaracharya came, how is it possible? This fantastic world, can it come from a zero? Can it be Shunya? Na sate vidyato bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha. Beautiful sloka from Bhagavad Gita. Cannot happen. Therefore, this is Purna. That also should be Purna. Purnamadaha, Purnavidam. This is infinite. That also should be infinite. That cannot be a zero. Therefore, that is the state. What is the relation between the two? Purnat Purnam Udachyate. This entire creation has come from that ultimate reality. It is manifested or appeared, whatever word you want to use. When this comes out of that, what happens to that? Will it become a zero? X minus x is zero. But that is a law of the finite world. Infinity minus infinity can be infinity. Purnasya Purnam Adaya, Purnameva Avasishyate. That Purna remains untouched. So that is our Varina state. That's called divinity. So Swami Vivekananda said the goal of life is to manifest that divinity. Why that divinity is not manifesting? Bright sun is there, but dark clouds. You are not getting the sunshine outside. Similarly, we have dark clouds of mala. That is, the different koshas are preventing the tremendous knowledge and everything to manifest. So we have to purify. Yoga is a process of purification. Purification of the Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnana, Anandamaya kosha. And what is that mala? Sakashayam vijaniyat. Samaprapta nachalayet. As Mandukya Karika says, it is full of imbalance. Imbalance at all the levels. At the body level, it is imbalance, autonomic imbalance, endocrine imbalance, imbalance in the left and the right brain, imbalance at every organ and system. Then in the Pranamaya kosha, we have got Prana, Apana, Samana, Udana, Vyana, everything is very imbalanced. And imbalance of the chakras, everything. At the mind level, imbalance between silence and activity, both these things balance. So emotional imbalances, imbalance at the intellectual level, that's the Ajnana. Ajnana and Viparya has started coming up, causing the imbalances. Imbalance at all the levels. Therefore, yoga, the process of purification is to bring balance. Samatvam yoga uchyate, as he rightly pointed out so beautifully. Therefore, the whole process of yoga is to do that. You work at all the levels. Jnana yoga, Raj yoga, Bhakti yoga, Karma yoga are the four streams of yoga that Swami Vivekananda has given. Jnana yoga is the path of the intellect. Raj yoga is the Patanjali yoga is the path of willpower. Bhakti yoga is the path of emotions. And it has to be brought into day-to-day activity. That's the Karma yoga. Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Beautifully, already our dear Bhaddi has brought out this thing. Therefore, that is the dimension. But in Karma yoga, I have to convert every action into a yoga. Yoga is the science of holistic living. It's a lifestyle change that we have to bring. That's the dimension that's needed. Therefore, in that beautiful verse, karmanya karmaya pashet akarmani cha karmayaha sabuddhiman manusheshu sayukta krutna karma krita. It says that a person who knows that inner silence all the time maintaining and doing the action, and that inner silence is imbalance, that has to be corrected. All our sanchita karma, then prarabdha karma, which are all hidden in the form of those imbalances at the deeper levels of the mind, manomaya, vijnanamaya koshas, everything has to be corrected. That is where the Jyotisha comes into picture. Jyotisha can track what are your prarabdha karmas and the sanchita karmas which are hidden there. And you have to see that you do that. There is the influence of the external grahas which bring about. That all has been tracked to such great extent. Varaha Mihira was one of the greatest seers. Just like Patanjali made great contributions of grammar, Ayurveda and yoga. our ancient master Varahamihira did astronomy, astrology and mathematics, and such huge granthas he has written. All that are there in our Sanskrit literature, and it is time that we have to unravel the mysteries that are hidden and bring forth for application. With this, once again, I place and record the great contributions of this university, and I wish all the best to the participants for making this a grand success. At SAMSKRITA SAMUNMESHA, it should come up in such a great thing. It should be learned from everybody, from the primary school. It should be brought and it should be developed. That is ambition. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to chair this session and be with all of you. Dhanyavad, namaskar.
आचार्यैः HR नागेन्द्रमहाभागैः प्रकृतिपरब्रह्मणोः सम्बन्धः कथं भवति, प्रकृतिः कथं व्यापृता, परं ब्रह्म गन्तुं कथं सहकारिणी भवति इति उपनिषद्वाण्या गीतावचनैः तैः सम्यक् सुष्ठु निरूपितं वर्तते. ते भवन्ति विश्वमानवाः. अतः तेषां कृते अहं धन्यवादं समर्पयामि. अस्य कार्यक्रमस्य अन्तिमभागः भवति धन्यवादसमर्पणम्. अस्माकं विश्वविद्यालयस्य साङ्ख्ययोगप्रमुखा भवति डॉक्टर ज्योतिमहाभागा. तामहं सम्प्रार्थये कृपया कृतज्ञतां विनिवेदयतु इति.
योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि. संस्कृति मंत्रालयः, भारत सर्कारः, साहित्य अकादमी नवदेहली, राष्ट्रीय संस्कृत विश्वविद्यालयः तिरुपति, संस्कृत फाउंडेशन मैसूर सहयोगेन आयोजिते अस्मिन् विशेष कार्यक्रमे संस्कृत समुन्मेषः राष्ट्रीय संस्कृत सम्मेलने षष्ठसत्रस्य विषयः अस्ति संस्कृतं योगश्च. विदित सत्यमेव योगेन योगो ज्ञातव्यः योगात् योगः प्रवर्तते यो प्रमत्तस्तु योगेन स रमते योगे चिरम् इत्युक्तदिशा योगस्य ज्ञान विज्ञानं योगनिपुणेभ्यः कुशलेभ्यः एव ज्ञातव्यम्. सत्रेऽस्मिन् राराजन्ते साक्षात् सनातन योगाचार्याणां प्रतिनिधयः आधुनिकयोगमार्गदर्शकाः. तेषु प्रमुखाः सन्ति पूज्याः नागेन्द्र महाभागाः. जानन्त्येव खलु अध्यक्षाः योगशास्त्रविशिष्ट विद्वान् विश्वप्रसिद्धाः. श्वासस्य व्यासस्य श्वासः विश्वविद्यालयस्य श्वासः सन्ति. अनन्तरं सार्थकनामधेयाः. वयं जानीमः पतञ्जलयः साक्षात् आदिशेष अवतारः. एते नाम्ना अपि सार्थकता अस्ति नागेन्द्राः इति. अद्य स्वाध्यक्षवचोभिः अस्मान् सर्वान् उद्बोधितवन्तः. कार्यक्रमपक्षतः नः तेषां कृते पतञ्जलयः आत्माञ्जलयः सहस्राधिकधन्यवादाश्च. पत्रप्रस्तोतारः सन्ति. प्रथमं वादिराज महाभागाः. योगस्य अध्ययने साधने च संस्कृतस्य भूमिका विषयमधिकृत्य विशेष अंशान् स्वमतं स्वविचारान् च प्रबोधितवन्तः. तेभ्यः हृत्पुण्डरीक अञ्जलयः नैके धन्यवादाश्च. आचार्याः गणपतिभट् महाभागाः. योगः यथा श्रीकृष्णेन भगवद्गीतायां कथितः विषयमधिकृत्य स्वविचारान् प्रचोदितवन्तः साक्षात् शङ्कराचार्यप्रतिनिधयः अद्भुत अद्वैतवादिनः गणपतिभट् महाभागाः. तेभ्यः सहस्राराञ्जलयः कोटिशः धन्यवादाश्च. मोहन राघवन महाभागाः. सुस्थितेः आधुनिकचिकित्सायाः च सन्दर्भे योगसंस्कृतकोशस्य अन्वेषणं विषयमधिकृत्य योगस्य आवश्यकताम् उद्घोषितवन्तः. तेषां ज्ञानाञ्जलयः नैके धन्यवादाश्च. वयं जानीमः यानमस्ति, चालकः नास्ति चेत् का गतिः अस्माकं. सत्रस्य अस्य स्तब्धता भविष्यत्येव. तदर्थं सञ्चालकाः कुशलाः गुरवः पूज्याः पूजानारायण महाभागाः तेषां सञ्चालकेभ्यः अस्मत्पक्षतः हार्दिकाः धन्याः. उपमञ्चं विराजमानाः देवाः अतिथिदेवाः वन्दनीयाः अध्यापकाः, अध्यापकेतराः, प्रियछात्राः, छात्राश्च, आभासप्रचारकाः, प्रत्यक्षपरोक्षरूपेण सहकारं कृतवद्भ्यः, अवकाशं दत्तवद्भ्यः, प्रदत्तवद्भ्यः कार्यक्रमस्य मूलहेतवः समेषामपि सर्वेषामपि मत्पक्षतः धन्यवादाः। अन्ते अहं वक्तुमिच्छामि, तपस्विभ्यो अधिको योगी, ज्ञानिभ्योऽपि मतोऽधिकः, कर्मिश्च अधिको योगी, तस्माद् योगी भवार्जुन। वयं सर्वे योगिनः भवामः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ओम शांति शांति शांति। नमस्कार।